Let's take a few of these questions. I've probably addressed a lot of it, but just in case, I'm going to scroll through these and make sure I answer a question or two once I find the tweet. All right. Jimmy Schnuggin. If the jury decided there were antitrust violations and the only error they made was the calculated damages, wouldn't the judge only make a ruling to modify damages and not throw out the entire verdict? You mentioned changing it to $1. Would the NFL be forced to change the pricing? Great question. I think I've covered a lot of this, but the judge didn't even get to the point where he reduced damages to $1. He found that the evidence submitted by the plaintiffs was so insufficient and unreliable that they have nothing. Hey, you've proven an antitrust violation. Congratulations. You have nothing to prove damages. You don't even get $1 for nominal damages. You get nothing. That's why we are where we are. Philander Whitlessy. I'm always worried that, like, if I read this phonetically or as it's spelled, it's something highly inappropriate, but I think we're okay. If the judge agrees correctly that the jury was able to determine the anti-competitive practices occurred, how can the judge then throw out the verdict, particularly on the grounds that the plaintiffs didn't prove a hypothetical? That's what this comes down to. The judge found that no reasonable jury would accept as reliable the evidence submitted by the plaintiff's experts. And the reality is, when you look at the transcript, like, the fact witnesses, the non-experts, when they testify, they tell a story, they get asked questions. It's pretty easy for the average person to understand. And then the experts testify, and it really is, to use the judge's term from June 18, gobbledygook. It's impossible. How can somebody without any training in economics even begin to understand this stuff? And it usually cancels out, and then the jury just does what the jury is going to do. That's kind of how the game is played. One side puts on an expert that says one thing, the other side puts on an expert that says the other, and then the jury does what the jury does. In this case, the judge found that what the experts put on wasn't sufficiently reliable for any reasonable jury to give it credence. So that's how we got to where we were. Benny the Cab. Oh, this is a good one. With seemingly the entire NBC sports team covering the Olympics, do you feel left out or jealousy that you didn't get to go to Paris and cover it? Also, do you think you'll cover the next one with flag football being introduced? Let me just be very clear on this. They didn't hire me to cover the Olympics. They hired me to cover football, and camps are open. I would be missing out on 2 weeks of training camps and preseason if I was in Paris. And first of all, I have no desire to go to Paris, frankly, all due respect to Paris. If I was going to go across the ocean, I'd go to Italy. Second of all, Olympics aren't my thing. Great that they're kicking ass and they're doing well. And there's plenty of options for you to get your news and information and analysis about the Olympics, but we're not an Olympics website. NBC didn't bring us on board to be an Olympics website, so I don't want to be part of the Olympics coverage. And I'll tell you right now, I don't want to go to LA for entirely separate reasons that we've well established here in 2028. If I'm even still with NBC in 2028, I don't care about flag football. I know they're trying to force it. Everyone, like in the entire NFL ecosystem, is trying to force flag football down our gullets right now. I'm going to resist as long as I can. Because to me, sorry, NFL, flag football ain't football. So I'm not interested in flag football come 2028. Now, if a bunch of NFL players are playing, that's a different story. But still, when will the Olympics happen? I got to check the dates on that. I think they line up in a way that maybe does make it possible that players won't miss much camp, but we'll see. If I'm still working for NBC, and if they want me to do it, and if they give me hazard pay for being in LA for 2 weeks, I'll consider it. Miller, a.k.a. at Leroy Country. DirecTV was always giving away Sunday Ticket for free to get you to sign up or to not cancel. How does that factor into this? The people who got it for free weren't part of the class. The people in the class were the people who were paying for Sunday Ticket year in and year out. Because, look, the people who got it for free, a lot of them didn't even watch it. These are the people who affirmatively paid the deliberately overcharged price to get them to buy Sunday Ticket. So the people who got it for free aren't part of this. No harm, no foul for any of them. Corey Joskowitz, given the league's propensity to not be proactive in addressing potential future problems, is it fair to say they won't adjust anything moving forward, even given the apparent problems their customers had with their approach to distribution of their content and the pricing? I think the NFL is going to keep doing exactly what it's doing until it's told to stop, because I think the NFL knew back in 1994 when DirecTV and Sunday Ticket first became a thing. They knew it was an antitrust violation. For the first 8 years, the NFL exclusively controlled the pricing of it. It was an even more clear and obvious antitrust violation. And they've gotten away with it for 30 years. Whatever they ultimately have to pay, they will have squirreled away billions on the path toward whatever the reckoning may be. And they're still going to be ahead of the game. I think even with $14.1 billion, they're still ahead of the game. So they're going to keep doing what they do. We've reported they have no anticipation to make any changes. After last night's ruling, they're not going to be more inclined to change, that's for sure. But I think it's very simple. And I don't know where this stands, and I need to find out. Because there was the possibility of what they call injunctive relief, where the judge would say Sunday Ticket is disbanded. I don't know why the plaintiffs wouldn't insist on that. Now, here's the reality. You don't get a third of the value of Sunday Ticket being disbanded. For the plaintiffs' attorneys, the far more pressing economic concern is getting that $14.1 billion back. You get a third of $14.1 billion. You don't get a third of what the consumers get going forward. That's part of the problem here. But I think part of the obligation, the fiduciary responsibility the lawyers have to the class, and I'm a member of it. Anybody out there that's had DirecTV's Sunday Ticket from 2011 to 2022 is a member of it unless they opted out. Yeah. For those of us who have bought it or might be inclined to buy it in the future, let's break up this antitrust violation and let's make Sunday Ticket cheaper. Let's make the out-of-market package cheaper, more flexible, easier to get, easier to use, and cheaper to utilize than it has been for 30 years. Dean Ficini, putting aside the decision by the judge to overturn the judgment, has this lawsuit tarnished the reputation of the NFL and so give them cause to reconsider their future pricing strategies, or will it embolden them to raise prices even further? I'll say that it will cause them to do nothing because, frankly, and I still haven't gotten any pushback. And maybe I'm pushing the envelope to see if I do. But the case was horribly covered by the media. And there are plenty of people in the media who are in bed with the NFL. They either want to work for NFL media or their media operation has a relationship with the NFL that they put above the truth. And look, NBC has a relationship with the NFL, but I think in fairness to everyone, we need to call it like we see it. Sunday Ticket is an antitrust violation as it's currently constructed. But there wasn't enough coverage to shame the NFL into changing. The NFL is emboldened. We're going to keep doing what we do. And they keep saying, we have the best media rights package of any sport in the country, and all local games are available in the home market for free. There was a great example given by one of the expert witnesses called by the plaintiffs to rebut the expert testimony presented by the NFL. And it went something like this. If you split California into North and South, and if in the North, the most popular cereal is granola, and in the South, the most popular cereal is Cheerios. And in the South, Cheerios are really cheap, where it's the most popular cereal, but granola is really expensive. And in the North, granola is really cheap, where it's the most popular cereal, but Cheerios are really expensive. And there's a monopoly, a cartel, an antitrust violation in jacking up the price. The point is, you got people in Northern California that want Cheerios, and they got to pay way too much for the Cheerios, so they'll just settle for the granola. And you got people in the South that want granola, but it's way too expensive, so they'll just eat Cheerios. That's the reality here. The NFL loves to say we give fans more choices, but you have to pay too much for the choices because they want you to pay too much for the choices because they want you to just say, I'll have the Cheerios instead, even though I don't want the Cheerios. That's what it comes down to. But because the case was shoddily covered by the media at large, the NFL has not been shamed into changing. And that's the point I've been saying from the get-go. No matter what happens with this verdict, it has been laid bare. The NFL has taken advantage of its most avid fans and deliberately overcharged them in order to get the less avid fans to just watch whatever's on local TV for free. And they ignore one key fact here. And I probably got to wrap this up soon, but I was talking to somebody about this the other day. And I originally got Sunday Ticket in 1997 because I wanted to watch Vikings games, because I was maybe seeing 3 a year if I was lucky. A Monday night, a Sunday night, and maybe it would just fall just right. The Steelers are on a bye week and they backfill with Vikings, Bucks, or whatever the case may be. In 1994, the year that DirecTV came out, my wife and I were renting a house, and I wasn't going to go get a satellite dish and pay all that money. And we just got married, and it's like, I really don't want to make the ask for this significant investment just so I can watch the Vikings games. You know what channel I would watch on Sundays in 1994? I didn't watch the Steelers game. I didn't watch the game that was on Fox at the time. That was the first year that Fox was available to broadcast NFL games. You know what channel I watched those days? And those of you of a certain vintage will know what I'm talking about. I watched CNN Headline News, because CNN Headline News in 1994 was the only network that had the scores at the bottom of the screen. So in lieu of watching whatever Steelers game was on and waiting for maybe an update, maybe at halftime they'd tell me the score, I could watch CNN Headline News and I would see the score of the Vikings game every minute and a half, because they'd scroll through them. So how many people just don't watch it all? That's the thing that I feel like the NFL has completely missed here. Your league isn't so popular that if there's somebody in Pittsburgh that wants to watch Dolphins games and they have to spend too much to watch Dolphins games, their fallback isn't, well, I'll just watch the Steelers game. That's not now maybe now, because the scores are on the screen and they do have updates, and maybe you do get more action and more information that way. But I think that this assumption that people who can't or won't pay for Sunday ticket to watch the team out of market that they want to watch will just automatically watch whatever you give them. I don't know that that is as clear as the NFL, CBS, and Fox believe that it is. All right, a couple more. Burn Unit. You have said that appeal judges don't like to overturn rulings. Do you think this one will be an exception? Feels like the judge went rogue instead of the jury. I'm sorry if I misspoke in the past. Judges don't like to overturn jury verdicts, and judges don't like to be overturned by appeals courts. Appeals courts overturn judges all the time. They reverse and remand cases all the time. And here's what will happen. I don't know how many judges there are in the Ninth Circuit. There's probably more than 20. 3 of them will be randomly assigned the appeal of this case. The parties won't even know. The lawyers won't know until the day they show up, unless they've changed procedures. They do it differently in the Ninth Circuit. I know from my own experience, going to the Fourth Circuit in Richmond a couple of times when I was practicing. You walk through the door, you see the board that has the assignments, and there's the names of the judges. And loosely speaking, 2-1. Democrat versus Republican, Republican versus Democrat, appointed judge. That gives you an idea which way the wind's blowing. So we'll see what happens on the Ninth Circuit. And then beyond that, it goes to the Supreme Court. And there are other things that happen within the Ninth Circuit. There can be a request for rehearing, the rehearing en banc. We talked about that, or at least we wrote about that earlier this week with John Gruden. He's trying to get the full Nevada Supreme Court to tell him his case doesn't have to go to arbitration against the NFL. At some point, one side or the other here may be trying to get the whole Ninth Circuit to say whatever it is they want them to say. So, yeah, you can't even begin to anticipate or predict what's going to happen on appeal, because until you know who the 3 judges are. But I think there's enough there for at least 2 of the 3 judges to say to Philip Gutierrez, you got this wrong. It's luck of the draw at this point. All right, let's see what else we have. Here's the last one, and then we're going to call it a day. Jason Verne. In light of the judge taking tremendous power into his own hands and imposing his will, did you ever consider becoming a judge? Why or why not? As a person with a seemingly strong moral compass, it seems like something you would have enjoyed. I practiced law long enough to see how judges work and the way that they have to operate and the stress that they are under. And, you know, it's the kind of job where, and I saw the whole gamut, you can be as lazy as you want to be, or you can be as conscientious as you want to be. And I know how I'm wired, and I would have put way too much into it. And as Michael Scott once said, I no longer get paid by the hour, I get paid by the year. You're on a salary. And you don't get paid extra for busting your ass. You don't get paid extra for staying up late. You don't get paid extra for having an unrelenting desire to make sure that justice is done in each and every case. So, frankly, I know what judges make. Now, for some people, there's value in being a judge. I have power. I wear the black robe. Everybody stands up when I walk into the room. Everybody stands up when I leave the room. I don't really care about that shit. I'm at the end of the day, I want to do what I enjoy, and I want to be fairly compensated for it. And I think to do the job of a judge right at any level, you got to put in way more time and way more effort and way more give a shit than you get paid for. So just as an economic decision, it ain't worth it to me. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.